All right, let's do a little introduction to my sample. It's called the Reddit Emotion Analyzer sample. So before we move any further, let's go see the code. So let's get onto GitHub, where you will have the instruction on how to set it up, the prerequisite for you to run it, including script to deploy it, code, examples, all the good things. It is deployed as an Azure Functions. So right now it is in 100% in consumption mode, so it's basically running for free right now. There is available everywhere. The only feature or only things that I did that was a little bit different is to set the course setting here to all. And if we're running it from right here, for example, we can get and see, for example, for this, this one was for the announcement of the Microsoft Surface laptop. So if we go see that URL, let's open it up on Reddit. I said, let's open it up on Reddit by just copy pasting that link. And we have a whole bunch of different comments here. We have 66, and it's quite not clear exactly, like, is it positive? Is it negative? We don't really know. So by running this state, what we can do is we can get the status and we can just get an update here. And it gives us positive, negative, neutral, and mix. But I'm not expecting people to run this and go to that settings and just like do this whole dance all over again. And it's available right there. What if we could just, click on the link and have the same process run over again and have visual representation? Ain't that cool? The thing is, you can even click on the little logo here. It will take you back to this repository. So this whole thing, let's take another one. So, I don't know, .NET, because .NET is cool. Everyone loves .NET. Let's pick one with a lot of comments. So this one looks like 92. And 92 on .NET is, there's a lot of activity here. There's normally no 92 comments. So what does this one look like? Ooh, negative. But as you can see, it's kind of returning really quick, right? So let's take another one that I never did before. So let's take, cooking. Who does not love cooking? I love cooking. So there's a 227 comments here. I have no idea. So here, I thought I didn't like chicken skin. Too soggy, too fatty, too bland. Who doesn't love chicken skin? Well, I do. There's a lot of people that don't. Whatever. So let's just click on this. And it's going to start. Now it's going to actually start running because it's starting to get there's a lot of comments in here. Let's analyze them. But even though it's running, it's kind of returning really quickly. And we can see here that most of the comments are positive, which is amazing. That might mean that this community is actually a very positive community. Might be somewhere I want to hang out in. So all of this is super cool. Let's look at the code. So the first thing I want to show is the actual Visual Studio extension, the Chrome extension, I'm sorry. First thing you have to do is set the manifest. So I have icons that need to be set, just small description, things that are just, nothing super interesting. Only thing that is very cool though is that you have to remember is that if you're setting a settings.json and you file match this file and you set it to that specific schema, what you have here is you do have IntelliSense, which is great. Anyway, so this nice screen that was showing up at the Reddit image and the GitHub repo and all this stuff, that's just it. There's just this HTML. And then for the pop-up, that's just a bunch of fetch. There's no alternate libraries or random things. It's just retrieving that settings right away. But how do we prevent people from abusing it, right? From draining everything from my resources. So let's go see in the background what we have. So let's close all this because there's so much of it. So this is a Reddit, my Reddit trend analyzer that is on the server. It is running on Azure Functions right now. There's multiple versions. There's a version that is synchronous, meaning that it's going to take our cognitive services key, it's going to take my endpoint, and it is actually going to call and wait until all of this is done, and then it will return the result as a string. I could have returned it in any way, but that was just kind of a test. And we do have a recursive way to read through those replies, because on Reddit, replies can have replies, and replies can have replies, so it goes kind of like infinite. There's no deep end. So the easiest way, without caring for the memory or the stack, is to just do it recursive. So that's what I did. but I'd rather split my workload a little bit more. So how I did it was I did it with Dribble functions. So in this scenario, I'm going to be storing all my data in Azure Web Jobs, and I'm using Cognitive Services, but I'm still using just the free version of Cognitive Services. With that in mind, that would mean that potentially people could just abuse it by just recalling the same thread over and over again, and that would be like very, very bad for me because I would be paying way too much. So let's start with the actual start of our application, which is the HTTP start. It will be anonymous. There's get, there's post, but most of all, it will retrieve the URL from the query string, and it will just add .json to the end of it. So let's do a test. If I take this one here in any URL and I just add .json, we will have this massive file. So this is what I'm analyzing right now. There's many information in here, like how many downvotes, is this subreddit public, what are the colors, is it hidden, there's so many stuff in there. So I'm not interested in all of this, but I'm interested in a lot of information in there, including the comments. All right, so this orchestrator, what is going to happen is going to start a new async orchestrator, and that's just a normal function. It's not a Dribble function, it's just a normal HTTP trigger function that has a Dribble client injected into it. And this thread analyzer is the one we're going to be looking at. So let's look at this one, which is our orchestrator. And from there, you have to look at it from a workflow perspective. So let's take a look. We have this thread analyzer here that is get existing emotion result. Ooh, that's interesting. So if we already have a result, I want to return it. Like I don't want to have to reprocess all of those comments all over again unless it meaningfully changed. For me, I would only allow this thread to be parsed once, not twice, not 3 times, just once. And even if it's after 5 years, it's still going to be just once. We could change those conditions. We could change and add more information and do it more complex. But this is simple, right? So let's just keep it simple. Then, and that's the new API in the latest Dribble functions APIs, or at least in the latest package, is it allows you to do just like an activity you would call in another Azure functions. This one is actually going to call an HTTP, do an HTTP request on a URI, and it will return it and treat it as an action. So in our case, we're using this Reddit JSON URL, and we're invoking it, and we're going to be returning it as a pure string. Well, actually, in this case, just Dribble response content, and content here is a string. And we're going to parse it. So we want to parse this by doing another functions, which is going to parse all the comments. And once we have all those comments, we want to analyze the emotions on all of those. And once all of this has been done, we have all the emotion result. I actually want to save it because I want to make sure that it gets caught back here. So we can start looking at all the different code. Like this is dead now. We can remove it. We'll commit it later. And what we're doing, we're just saving it here. So the get existing will read from that thread, from that table, and it will just read it if it does not exist. And it will try to get it. And the problem with here is that row key, that's, by the way, a common mistake with row keys is that if you're trying to use a URL on it, the slash is not a permanent character in a row key, so I just need to hash it. So I'm transforming it into base 64 and kind of just works. All right, and here we have all of our object with all the different result. This one actually saves it, so it's the same operation as get. It's just the opposite of just read, is create and read. In this case, where I'm doing an insert or replace or what we call sometimes an upsert. This is our hash function, which is could be anything else, but this works pretty well. And then this is our recursive parsing of our comments that we had earlier. So this is now in a different extension here on C#. So this is an extension on the actual data format, and we don't need to call that function all over again. This is going to be parsed once. We don't need to deserialize it multiple times. This is going to be a single time deserialized. And then that's the analytic of the emotions. So we're going to take all this code, and by the time we get here, we already have all the sentiment for everything. At that point here, I'm just declaring a function to calculate a percentage of that kind of emotion compared to all the rest of the other comments. So if 1 is positive and 99s are negative, we have 1% positive, 99% negative, and so on for every other types of potential result. And now we're at the end. So that was just it. So what we saw basically here was, how do we call an Azure Functions, a durable functions, and have it interact with a UI component in your browser to basically tell you if a thread is going to be a happy thread or a sad thread or a neutral thread or a mixed thread, really. And if you want to play more with it, you can go on my code here, which is github.com/MaximeRouillet/Reddit Emotion Analyzer, and more will be coming. So let me know if you want more of this. It's been my pleasure. See you soon.